Okay, boys, so today we're going to be looking at putting our second draft together. Once you've made changes to your first draft, then you're ready for the second draft. So we need to check that our ideas are good and that they're written in the right order. We need to be certain that the meaning of our writing is clear. And then once we're sure of all of this, we're ready to ask the following questions. Have I used the best words? Have I used a thesaurus? Do I have a mixture of long and short sentences? Have I used different sentences? Have I used connectives properly? Now, before we can answer those 5 questions and look at our piece of writing and ask those 5 questions, we need to do first things first. Make the suggested edits to our first draft. Now, yesterday we went through our first draft, marking it with our code, showing what areas we had made spelling mistakes, where we'd left out punctuation, where we thought we needed to be clearer, where we needed to change the order of things, or where things were unclear. Now, we need to actually make those changes now and make the edits to our first draft. So this was what my first draft looked like, and I had marked in, using the code, some of the places that needed to be erased, some places that I wasn't sure about or that wouldn't be clear to an audience member or a reader. Then I needed to switch around, I felt, some of the order of the sentences, and as I said, spelling mistakes as well. So this is my edited first draft, so I'm making a move now towards the second draft. The whole class were excited as we gathered in the yard. The teacher and Marion paced up and down, running through a checklist. I waved goodbye to my mum and joined the back of the line next to Martin. It was a clear summer's morning. Martin was full of chat as usual, but I was nervous and could hardly follow what he was saying. The morning passed very quickly. Before we knew it, it was the Angelus bell rang, and it was time to go. Everyone scrambled to gather their props and various pieces of costume. The teacher had us line up in order of appearance in the corridor, and then we set off down to the community hall. The show would take place in the makeshift theatre, also known as the library. We had a lot of fun in rehearsals, but now it was time for the big show. Everyone was a little tense. Okay, so this is my paragraph for the first main event. These were the suggested edits. Let's see how it worked out after having edited the first draft. First, we made our way into the hall outside the library, carefully avoiding the excited second class boys making their way back to class. Martin turned to share a laugh at the funny costumes the boys wore. Looking at him, I realized that I didn't have my hat. My jaw almost hit the floor and my face went white with the fright. Marion to the rescue. She knew immediately what was amiss, and we headed straight back to class. I made a spare hat yesterday, just in case, she said over her shoulder as I struggled to keep pace. We were back in the classroom in no time at all. Okay, then my second main event. Now, I said that there was a reference to Rob Heffernan that a lot of boys mightn't understand, or a lot of boys in Scullone anyway, and then I said that Marion, being a stickler for the rules, needed to be clarified as well. There was a spelling mistake and some punctuation marks missing. Also, there was a bit of clarification needed towards the end of the paragraph. Let's see how it worked out. Then we made our way back to the hall in double time. Marion is a stickler for the rules, and she had no intention of breaking the no running rule, but desperate times call for desperate measures. We made a break for side stage while the audience chuckled at Averil's witty remarks. We had made it. It was only now I realized that I wasn't entirely sure where to go on stage. The teacher had carefully measured the stage and had marked it out in class for us to practice on. But I was a little unsure if his meter stick, or rather rope, was all that accurate. Okay, so let's move on to our third main event. Now, looking at this from our first draft, I decided that maybe some of the order had to be changed to remove some words that were becoming a bit tired from repetition. Maybe some punctuation was missing, and I needed to clarify on a number of issues, number of points. After that, I took my place in front of Martin. He gave me a gentle tap on the shoulder and quickly but very carefully described our on-stage positions. He even told me how many steps I should take. I went down through his instructions mentally as the audience clapped the narrator off stage. I took a deep breath and went for it. So this is the first draft final main event. Okay, so we had a small few changes to make here. So you can see just a very, very small change at the end. Finally, after the weeks of rehearsals, we were performing. Martin's instructions, and to be fair, the teacher's measurements were on point. I stepped forward, right on cue, took centre stage and delivered the punchline. The audience erupted in laughter and we took our bows. Okay, so moving on to our conclusion, there was one edit that I decided to make here. Okay, so it was a great experience. We did hit a few potholes, but it was a wonderful success. It's true what they say, there's no business like show business. And then once we've made all the edits to our first draft, the next step in making it to our second draft is to go through our piece again and ask ourselves the following questions. Have I used the best words? So see, maybe there's some words, as you read down through it, you might have some better vocabulary. Now it's grand when you're writing it, it's all your first draft, it's all about just getting your ideas on the page. Second draft, you're looking for obvious mistakes and maybe things that are very unclear, etc. And now you're really fine-tuning and thinking, maybe I have some better words in my store of vocabulary. Then to take that a little bit further, and maybe there's a few words that you'd like to be able to improve or use some more interesting words, you can use a thesaurus then, okay, and you can choose synonyms that you think would be more interesting or might give your writing a bit more colour. Then, do I have a mixture of long and short sentences? So I use, as a rule of thumb, roughly speaking, a line or two. If you're going into 3 lines for a sentence in your copybook, you're really pushing it. And what happens, and I find I do this a lot myself, once the sentence gets long, it starts to get very complicated, and sometimes our grammar can leave us down. And it is difficult to write a long sentence for everybody, no matter who you are. A boy in 3rd class, a boy in 6th class, a boy in 5th year, or someone even in college. So once we get those sentences going a bit too long, it can be very complicated structures, and we can lay ourselves up for a big fall and make it easy for us to make mistakes. So keep the sentences manageable, not exactly short, but a medium length. Now, if you want to use short sentences, then what effect do they have? Well, they make our writing very choppy. So it's not a good thing in general to use very short sentences, but it can be a very good effect if you want to show that there's something urgent happening or there's something dramatic happening. Short sentences then are a really good way to bring that across to your audience. So have a think about it. Maybe at the climax of the drama here in your recount, you could use some short, snappy sentences to really, without saying anything, just in the way you're writing, conveying the feelings or the emotions that might be involved. Then, have I used different sentences? Have we used a mixture of questions, statements, and other and ordinary types of sentences? And see, maybe you could include some questions, some exclamations, okay, some very declamations, you know, something that that someone says very strongly in your piece. So see, can you use some different types of sentences? And the last one, connectives. Okay, connectives, we always use them at the start of a paragraph. So at the moment we use them almost as guides, going from our first main point, then after that, next and finally, we have these connectives that help us to structure our recount. But we can also use them throughout our paragraphs, within and between. So see if you've used the connectives properly.